1 week season.
OWS fam, the nation, my dudes and dudettes, welcome back to a very special production from the 1 week season Best Ball Plus subscription. I'm going to be joined today by my cohort in crime, the great Mike Johnson, and we are going to have a couple of very interesting debates here on these sessions today. We're actually going to release two of these. We're recording both of them today, which is June 30th, and they're going to be released tomorrow and then Wednesday, to support the lowering of the best ball price package. So without further ado, let's bring him in, Mr. Mike Johnson. How we doing, dude? Looks like you got that Vegas vibes.
Yeah, I had this rolling as my background last week with stats, so got her going, and I was like, you know what? It's 4th of July week. I'm going to be at a pool a lot, or just kids were running through the sprinkler yesterday. So a lot of Wisconsin, we have like 5-6 months a year of like just bitter cold, and then we get this like 1 month where it's just like scalding hot. So even if you're uncomfortable, you just like force yourself to be out in it.
Now is kind of like the nice ramp up, right? Nice, dude. So as you can tell, my background is completely barren. We have just moved, for those that missed last week's live debacle. With that move came a new internet, and so today we're testing that. Hopefully everything runs smoothly. But now we're in the lovely North Carolina, so switching it up, man. But how are things before we get into this, dude? How are things? It's been a while since we have spoken on air together, with you and I typically doing our behind the scenes work for 1 week season Best Ball Plus. Obviously you handling primarily drafters and DraftKings, me handling primarily underdog. So we're going to mix those two today. But yeah, how you been, dude?
Good. Staying busy, obviously getting, we're cranking out the written works. We've got the basics package as well this year. So, for $29, you can get all our rankings and then just some written strategy pieces. So kind of opening ourselves up to maybe people who don't want to listen to us for 2 or 3 hours a week on the premium subscription. But obviously we've got some deep game theory stuff and strategies that we go into there. And that's where people can get our Best Ball Plus stuff. Drafters just filled their mini tournament, the $2 tournament, expecting that will open. They'll open like a new one sometime this week. So that one just filled like in the last 2 or 3 days. $2 entry, $10K for first. Guessing the new one that they released will be slightly bigger, kind of how they did it last year.
Yeah.
So I maxed that. I've still got like 20 slows going in it. And then drafters, they have their main contest, their main event, $20 entry, $500K to first, $2.5 million prize pool. So they've got a bonus. They have milestone bonuses for how many drafts you complete. You get a free ticket at 10, 25, 50, 75, and 100 drafts. But if you do it by June 30th, they double your prize. So I just got to 25 on that. So got 2 more free tickets on there. So that's kind of where my focus has been. And then haven't been doing as much on the DraftKings, their like Millie Maker tournament. They've got a lot of really good single entry, 3 max, like 5 max type tournaments. So I've been kind of trying to dive into those, and I think I'll have some strategy stuff for that for our Plus subscribers coming up.
Right on, dude. You mentioned you're about 25 drafts. Did you say 25 drafts in the primary over there on drafters? Yeah, I'm about 10, I think. But I'm about 50 BBMs through. I really hit it hard this past week. Finally, after the move, got settled in a little bit and was able to really, really hit some. So we're putting down some good volume, right on track. I'll be maxing the main event on drafters. I'll be maxing the BBM, and then I will be maxing the eliminator on underdog.
Nice.
Don't know beyond that what I'm going to put in, but I do like to get to a lot of the onesie twosies contests. A lot of the like snapshot contests, we call them, that are open for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks drafting instead of the entire like 6-month window. I really like those. So I'll be hitting those on all 3 platforms as well. But we got it up on the screen down below. tomorrow or today, by the time you're listening to this one, the price is dropping. So $29 for the OWS basics. And Mike talked about what's included in that. We also have a $20 price drop on the Best Ball Plus package, which is the additional higher level game theory-esque type stuff that we're talking about for all three of these primary platforms. So if you're new, go check those out, man. Drop us some comments, hit up the Discord, let us know what you think. Our goal is to build these to best suit you. So always appreciate that feedback. Without further ado, dude, let's get into it. And on this first session, this first episode, this first podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to compare our rankings. So Mike is dropping rankings for drafters and for DraftKings. I'm dropping rankings for Underdog. We're going to compare the two and talk about some of the guys that we are either higher or lower than each other, where we are different. And that all starts in the first round. And there's two guys that we have fairly big splits on in the first round. And that is Justin Jefferson and Christian McCaffrey. Do you think that the primary reason for this big split is the change in format, or are we seeing things differently here? What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of both. For me, I'm so for the listeners, so I have Justin Jefferson number 2 in my rankings on both sites, and Hilow, I believe, has him at number 7 for Underdog. So for me, Justin Jefferson, this Minnesota offense, the way I see it, we are in year 4 with Kevin O'Connell as the head coach. Just one of the better offensive minds. I think he's won Coach of the Year at least once and been in the conversation multiple times. Has he won it twice? Did he win it last year?
I don't recall, to be honest.
I can't remember, but he was in it, and obviously he made the most of Sam Darnold. One of the things I've talked about with regards to the quarterback situation in J.J. McCarthy is the 3 years that O'Connell has been there. The Vikings starting quarterback, if you just took their season-long point total, has averaged like 310 fantasy points. And that's with Kirk Cousins, statue, 35-year-old, 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago, it was him for 7 weeks, then Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins. Last year, it was Sam Darnold, who had been kind of left at the side of the road.
Yeah.
And now you have J.J. McCarthy, who, he only played one preseason game, but he really flashed there. And like camp reports were awesome last summer. And I think his arm strength, his mobility, I think there's a chance this Vikings offense just opens up to a totally another level this season. So Justin Jefferson, being the talent that he is, the kind of friendly rivalry him and Jamar Chase have as, who the best receiver in the league. Chase kind of made his case last year. I want to be ahead of it on Jefferson. I think that there's a lot of really good receivers near the top of the draft. And I think that he's the guy who I could see kind of separating himself from the pack most easily. And, like I said, there's just that element of the unknown with McCarthy, and I'm pretty excited to see what O'Connell does with that offense.
Yeah, there's no doubting. Don't get me wrong here. There's no doubting Justin Jefferson's upside. He has gone for 1,400 yards or more in all healthy professional seasons. He's averaged 15.0 yards per reception across his career, and that's a 5-year career already. So there's absolutely no doubting his upside. What is interesting to me and what gives me a slight bit of pause, where I have guys like CeeDee Lamb ranked slightly above him, it's just the uncertainty with the red zone role as far as where Kevin O'Connell's offense is going to function with the change under center. We might see some additional, and we get TJ Hawkinson, his first real fully healthy season back after that ACL injury. And to me, it would not shock me if we end the season and Justin Jefferson is the overall wide receiver 1, and that upside is built into where you have him. But for me, there's just a little bit more pause, I think, when we compare it to CeeDee Lamb with the Dallas Cowboys, some of these other top wide receivers at the top of the board. And as far as format rankings go, I actually have more wide receivers in the top, or sorry, more running backs in the top 12 than you do in your rankings because of the 0.5 PPR, because we've seen kind of a resurgence at the position. And where I kind of tail off is once we get past beyond the elites at the running back, then I start layering in more wide receivers. So I think it's a little bit of function of both for me, where I have him ranked. And I think the reasoning for both makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Jefferson's his skill set kind of and his body type, he's not like a dominant red zone type of guy. So a lot of it is like drafters is cumulative scoring. So for me, it's like over the course of the season, if he stays healthy, I know that at the end it's gonna kind of play itself out. He's got big play potential, but like to your point on underdog, half PPR, so that makes just the touchdowns are a lot more important. And to kind of segue into this next guy, those running backs, those high end running backs, you have 4 of them ranked ahead of him. I have kind of a premium that I put on wide receivers, especially on drafters, but also somewhat on DraftKings with the bonuses and the full PPR. But you've got, the main 3, Bijan, Barkley, and Gibbs. And then you've got CMC up ahead of him too, which I'll go ahead and let you make the argument for that.
Yeah, so CMC without Deebo Samuel is something that has me salivating. We know who Kyle Shanahan is. We've seen this offense. We've seen Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's now got the extension. We should see a little bit more emphasis placed on CMC. And I think if we look at and what really led me to this is we look at like his volume last season compared to like his record setting year in 2023, and his volume per game last season per healthy game was actually higher than it was in 2023. So they're clearly, to me, they're like, we've got this like all world guy. We went out and we traded for him. We brought him here. We're going to use him as, until the quote unquote wheels fall off. I don't think that we're at wheels fall off range with CMC just yet. Now remove Deebo Samuel and you look at CMC's pass catching splits with Deebo Samuel on and off the field, and we see a almost 40% boost to his expectations. So to me, this is a situation on 0.5 PPR with a healthy cast of skill position players entering the season, minus Brandon Ayuk, who could still start the season on PUP, which is another potential boost for CMC's volume. I just think that we see CMC back up to the in DFS, we're paying 10K plus a week to get this guy just on our rosters because he's seeing 22 carries and 8 to 10 targets a week type stuff. So yeah, to me, CMC is set up really well this season, especially on 0.5 PPR, where touchdowns become that much more important. I think we see that increased red zone usage as well return now with him a full year removed from injury. So that's my case for CMC. You have him at 11 overall. I have him at 3 overall. Talk to me about what you're seeing with that ranking.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't disagree with anything you said, and this is one that, again, maybe it's a little bit more of like a format type of discrepancy. I agree with everything you said. And frankly, as you're talking, I'm like, on DraftKings, I'm almost for sure lower than I should be on him. Just because thinking through it, like this Niners team, they still should be competitive, but even if they stay fully healthy all year, I don't think they're going to be what we saw 2 years ago in terms of they're kind of icing the rest of the conference. Maybe they're able to take it easy late in the year. I think there's a pretty good chance weeks 15 to 17, it's like, they've got to win. It's all these high leverage spots, and he's going to be the engine of the offense. And you also think about, everyone thinks about this. He lost last season. Basically, he just was, it was like a nothing, and it's viewed so negative. But if you zoom out and look at the context of what it was like almost like an overuse or pushing it thing with the Achilles. Like he tried to come back too soon and he kept pushing it, and then they just shut him down. And then the PCL thing late in the year and that snow game in Buffalo was like, it wasn't like it's not like he's coming back from like Brandon Ayuk blew up his knee. Or Rashee Rice. Like he's been healthy. He probably, like, if they had a different season, probably would have came back and played in the playoffs. Basically, his season was just when it happened. There, they saw the writing on the wall and just were like, okay, we're done for. But I mean, the reports are he is like super healthy, and you could probably make the argument that him doing so little in 2024 on the aggregate, he should have pretty fresh legs this year.
Yeah.
And the window is closing kind of on the 49ers. So I as you're talking there, I'm just like, man, I probably need to get some more CMC in my life.
Yeah. But yeah, those are the two biggest kind of deviations we had as far as our rankings go in the first round. We look at kind of the top 3 rounds. We talk about the top 3 rounds of a best ball draft kind of being the most important rounds of the draft, because these are the players that really have the best shots of ending like in the top 5 at their respective positions, or number 1 overall. And there's some other key names in these top 3 rounds that we had some deviations on as well. Primarily, well, it's a little bit of an extension to call DJ Moore top 3, depending on where you look. He's typically going in the 4th round, but I'm going to add him into this discussion because I have him in the top 3 rounds. So DJ Moore and Tyreek Hill. I have Tyreek Hill ranked 15 overall on Underdog. You have him at 29 overall on Drafters. Let's talk about Tyreek, and I'll throw it to you first. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, and he's a guy I wouldn't say I'm low on. I think you might be like
I'm ultra mega high.
Yeah, you're probably ultra mega high like for the industry.
Yeah.
And I think the Dolphins, like, I think it's dangerous when people start thinking, well, Tua is just going to get hurt. He's always hurt because assuming injuries in the NFL, any player can get hurt, like in any game, like it's a violent sport. So I think that's like a dangerous way to go about it. But when you think through this Dolphins team, I kind of think somebody between Tyreek, Waddle, and Jonnu is going to absolutely smash their ADP. And we've seen, I think, like 4 or 5 straight seasons before last year, Tyreek was a top 5 wide receiver. So definitely see the upside case for him. He's a guy I pretty consistently target in the early to mid 3rd round for sure. So I'm not like down on him. I guess I'm trying not to go crazy because I recognize, the age, and it's Tyreek. Like, I'll probably continue to come up on him as the season gets closer and he has less time to do something silly. But
that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, it's just an age, and there's risk there that I think that I am baking that in more, and I think that and probably again, like slightly for the format, like Tyreek has that single week upside where he could take a step back, but he still is going to have that 203 touchdowns type ceiling on a weekly basis that can win you the tournament on Underdog.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go full upside case here. I'm gonna pull some stats from Jared Smola over at Draft Sharks. He does his things I learned during fantasy football projections piece, and these are straight from that. So Jared Smola is a great follow. If you don't follow him, go check him out over at Draft Sharks. But this is from his most recent article. Dolphins ranks in yards per play under head coach Mike McDaniel. 2022, they were 3rd. 2023, they were 2nd. 2024, they were 23rd. The Dolphins in 11 Tua games last season had a 62.9% pass rate. In the other 6 games, they had a 57.1% pass rate. So almost a 10% increase in pass rate with Tua under center. Tua last year threw a league low 6.0% of his passes downfield. So that's 20 plus yards downfield. That was down over half from 13.8% and 11.2% the previous 2 seasons. So all of that, and this kind of reinforces what I saw from this team on tape last year, which was the struggles of their offensive line mixed in conjunction with the struggles of Tua Tagovailoa staying healthy, forced Mike McDaniel to develop this more short area passing offense. And that is a large part of the reason why I think we saw Johnny Smith have his career year. Now, if they made improvements to the offensive, and this is not like even a top 15 offensive line yet. They made improvements, but it wasn't it wasn't hard to get worse than last year. So they make improvements to the offensive line. We're coming into the season with a healthy Tua Tagovailoa. Tyreek Hill had surgery on both wrists this offseason. We knew those were nagging him. Whether it was from the arrest, whether it was from something else, we don't know. But he had surgery on both wrists this offseason, expecting him to be healthier as well. Gone are the hamstring issues. So all of these things kind of come together to me to be like, man, Tyreek Hill, the single week upside is specifically for playoff format. And then even for like cumulative scoring, it wouldn't surprise me to see Tyreek Hill return to form in his age 31 season with a healthy Tua, with an improved offensive line, with this team attacking downfield at a higher rate, with this team at above average pass rate. Would not surprise me to see Tyreek Hill finish as like the overall wide receiver 1 again. So to me, that kind of upside in the 3rd round, I'm clicking his name a lot, man. You gotta save me from this, but I'm clicking his name a lot currently.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that, and I do think, I also think that when you look at the macro perspective of the Dolphins, like last year when the Tua thing happened, and then he was out, and then like there was talk like, is he going to retire? Is he going to like? They didn't really have a choice. Like McDaniel had to just figure something out on the fly of like, how are we going to approach this to like keep this guy alive? Like we like keep his career alive, really. Because if it had happened again, like, so that had to be at the forefront of everything, and the downfield stuff and probably playing optimally or playing how they want to play kind of had to be pushed back, especially with the offensive line. I would think with, you let him get in the lab for 8 months and cook up some ways to protect Tua, but still get the ball downfield, still utilize the speed of those wide receivers. I mean, I think that improved offensive line and probably scheming around it a little bit better are both things that are probably on the table there. And I mean, if Tyreek has his head screwed on, I mean, we're seeing athletes across the board, these high-end athletes kind of elongate their careers more and more as training and maintenance and nutrition has improved over the last decade or two. It wouldn't shock me if Tyreek just, if he's that 9K guy on DraftKings by week 3 again.
Yeah, and look, guys, all the like reports and articles and like talk that I've seen around the industry that like Mike McDaniel might be on the hot seat this season, Shane Steichen might be on the hot seat this season. Like these are 2 of the top offensive minds in the league. They are not on the hot seat, I can promise you.
Well, if they are, they'll be snatched up immediately.
Oh my God, yes. Both those guys, like they have not had smooth sailing in their respective careers at their current stops, like Steichen in Indy and Mike McDaniel in Miami. These are still 2 of the top offensive minds in the league as far as scheme and maximizing the talent they have on the field. So that's my bull case on Tyreek. Let's talk about DJ Moore real quick. I want to start getting through a little bit of these guys a little bit quicker, so I'll stop running my mouth so much. DJ Moore, I have ranked 26 overall. You have him at 43 overall, which is a little bit more in line with industry standard there. Are you seeing any downside with DJ Moore more than the industry, or are you just kind of around industry sentiment right now?
Yeah, and I, frankly, I'm almost like more bearish even than my ranking. So this was one I was interested to hear your take on. I'm high on the Bears in general. Ben Johnson coming in, highly regarded. Also, I think that we've seen a couple things. I don't know how well DJ Moore, and this is like the coach in me coming out, but like I don't know how well DJ Moore, like we saw him kind of like quiet quitting last year, some attitude things. Supposedly there was like Ben Johnson like was getting after him at a couple of the like mini camp things.
Yeah, good.
About effort, whatever. And it sounds like Moore was kind of contrite when he talked to the media about it, but also like these are professional athletes, wide receivers can kind of be divas. Like a guy can go one of two ways when a coach handles him that way. And I think that's probably the right way to coach.
Yeah.
But also like sometimes you see coordinators come in, like if he's trying to be Dan Campbell, but he's not Dan Campbell, and you're super hard on these guys, but like Campbell has that like relationship aspect too.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's where, I see, I guess I'll hear your upside case. And I've always loved DJ Moore as a player, but they spent a lot of draft capital on Loveland and Burden. Roma Dunze, I think, is a pretty talented guy. So, I think it's one of those things where they have other options or young guy ascending guys who they could make more focal points. That gives me a little bit of hesitation with more, especially in the cumulative format.
Yeah, and I get the both sides of this discussion. So I'll start it with that. There is the potential for DJ Moore to upset, and I think it makes him one of the more enigmatic picks in the first 5 rounds. I'm buying into the upside of this offense. And if I'm buying into the upside of this offense under Ben Johnson, I have to be buying into their alpha wide receiver currently. I mean, was it currently? Like Roma Dunze ascending and entering his second season. They go out and they draft Luther Burden. They draft a bunch of, they draft the Colston Loveland. Sorry, they didn't draft Luther Burden. What am I talking about? They draft, yeah, they did. Okay.
Second round, yeah, he's 38th.
They did. Sweet. Yeah, I'm an idiot. But one of the biggest changes for this team as a whole, with not discounting the addition of Ben Johnson and Declan Doyle there for the call on the offense, but what they did to the offensive line, and they clearly saw the struggles of this offensive line last season. We saw really. It's hard for me to like formulate my thoughts because I have so much to say, but I'll try and say it as succinctly as possible. Caleb Williams really just struggled so much because he was constantly under duress the entire season. So what do? They bring in Joe Thuney for left guard. They bring in Drew Dahlman at center. They bring in Jonah Jackson at right guard. And these are 3 veteran interior offensive linemen, and they are still playing at a high level. So you improve this offensive line, you give Caleb Williams some more time to actually make it through his progressions, stop running for his life. And I think this offense just hums a lot. It's like they're on the same page for the entire season. And now DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, even the running backs, DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson. We'll talk about some of them, I think, a little bit later as well. I'm kind of higher than consensus on all these guys. And I feel like the industry is not yet accounting fully for all those changes that we talked about for this team last season. And it makes sense. Like we have a really sour taste in our mouth. It was like Caleb Williams, first overall pick. And then what did we see happen? We didn't really see like Caleb Williams, I don't think. So I'm high on the offense as a whole. Currently, Mike Clay has them projected to score 394 points this coming season. That would rank in the top 15 in the league. And I think that might be a little low still. You look at the division they're playing in. This is the most competitive division in football. We mentioned some of the talk about CMC. The NFC West is probably the second most competitive division in football as well. So what does that mean? That's 6 of their games this season. They have a competitive schedule. I just expect them to have to be kind of this offensive juggernaut this season. And I think they're set up well to do that. And a function of that is DJ Moore as their primary piece.
For sure.
Let's move on. The next guy on the list, another top 5 rounder, irrespective of where he's being drafted, Xavier Worthy. You have him currently at 34 overall, slightly above consensus. I have him down at 59 overall, which is about 20 picks. Well, no, not that much. Yeah, about 20 25 picks below consensus. Give me the bull case for Worthy, and then I'll talk about a little bit of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, so for me, I think that I look at the Chiefs offense as So I do the NFL Edge during the season, and I usually have the afternoon wave because I do our afternoon only write up for the
A lot of
strategy
Chiefs
articles.
games.
So I have a lot of Chiefs
Yeah.
games, and so pretty much their MO, and we've seen this, like, Patrick Mahomes kind of, from what he was, this explosive passer, becoming more of like a game manager. They're about the defense. Kelsey's kind of aging a bit. And I think that the way, it wasn't just that they lost in the Super Bowl, it was the way they lost in the Super Bowl. Kind of showed some chinks in the armor.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, if they're going to win rings, I think explosiveness is going to have to return to this offense.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Worthy had, he really came on strong at the end of last season. And I think he just brings something to that offense that the other guys that are involved do not really offer. And so
Yeah.
I think from that standpoint, he's a guy that, especially at that point in the draft where he's going, that like 3-4 round turn, that's the type of guy. He's a second-year wide receiver, kind of figured it out late in the season. Like, he literally had like 35-point game in the Super Bowl. Granted, a lot of that was on that like deep pass, like at the very end.
Yeah.
But he's just he's a guy I want to be ahead of. When I think through a lot of these guys in the early fourth, I guess end of the third through like the sixth round, one thing I like to think through is, like, which of these guys a year from now could we be looking at? Like, this is an early second rounder. And Worthy kind of fits that bill for me in terms of, like, he's still next year will only be like 24 years old.
Yeah.
He could have emerged as like the top wide receiver option or receiving option for the Chiefs. Maybe Kelsey's retired. If Kelsey takes another step back after this season, like, Worthy and Rice could become something. So he's just a guy that I'm pretty high on, and kind of similar to Tyreek. I'm probably even higher than what my ranking suggests. It's just that I know I can basically always get him at that 3-4 turn. So having to like control myself a little bit.
Yeah, and this is another one where I'm probably too low. This was more of like a not like driving home a point, but from what I've seen from this offense in the past and what players I expect their roles to be coming into 2025, I think Rashee Rice is just set up so well to kind of dominate the volume in this offense. We see a declining Travis Kelce. We see Rashee Rice, what he did at the beginning of last season, what he did at his rookie season, kind of just dominating looks in the second half of his rookie season and then the first couple of games of last year before getting injured. Kind of just dominating looks in this offense. His timing is impeccable. His route running is immaculate. And Xavier Worthy, I don't think he gets enough credit for his route running. I mean, we just kind of think of him as this like blazing speed guy, but he is fairly crisp in and out of routes, in and out of breaks. So there is further development potential for Worthy here. But what is biggest for me is the red zone role. We saw some schemed usage. We know this offense likes to kind of always have someone there scheming stuff around the red zone. I don't know if Worthy has enough to kind of be that guy. And they've made lesser players that role. They've given lesser players that role. They've given Jerick McKinnon that role. They've given Mecole Hardman that role in this offense. So like it could happen. But to me, you got Travis Kelce, you got Rashee Rice, who's good at the interior stuff. And then you've got the running backs, and we've seen their red zone pass rate kind of dip in the last two seasons. It's the potential for me for that spike week when he's not connecting on the deep stuff. And what really kind of had me soured on that expectation is last year he caught just 3 of 17 targets that traveled 20 plus yards downfield. That was 70th of 72 wide receivers with 10 plus deep targets. So yes, he's fast. Yes, he's a pretty good route runner, probably better than the industry seems to think. But if he's not connecting on those, and there is the discussion, the other side of that is what if he starts connecting on those, right? Yeah. So I'm not discounting that. But to me, it's kind of that red zone role. And particularly in 0.5 PPR without the bonus, if he is not connecting on those deep passes, then it makes sense for me. And his single week upside is still there. And we have to kind of consider that last season we saw the Chiefs take an even more conservative approach on offense. And you made a good point, like that could turn around. But 58.8% pass rate was their lowest with Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback. So there's just a lot more uncertainty, I think, that kind of negates some of the single week upside that we see with Worthy. And that's kind of where I have him ranked, is like, I just see guys that I expect to be a little bit more consistent and still carry spike week potential in that range.
Yeah, that's fair for sure.
That was a good one, I think. That one, he's probably one of the more yes and no ones and zeros, I think.
Yeah.
Guys in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah, people are. It is the type of guy where I think people are very much on one side of the fence or the other. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, if you're listening to our strategy discussion, you don't have to take ones and zeros approaches. We're just bringing this debate to you guys. Again, head on over to 1 week season, check out the price drop down there, and we'll put that in the description in this as well. But it's on the screen as well. Best Ball Basics, $29. Best Ball Plus, where you're getting this strategy discussion, the higher level stuff, the game theory, the reasons why we don't need to be binary in ones and zeros and player discussions. You can check out the Best Ball Plus product for $79 with that price decrease. So those were really the big guys. Well, there's a couple more names here in the top 5 rounds. Let's get through those. We might not have time to get through our entire list right now. But the 2 other guys kind of I guess 3 other guys in the top 5 rounds. Chris Olave's a 6th, depending on where you're drafting. Actually, he's fallen to the 6th on Underdog too, which is interesting. But Chris, go ahead.
Let's talk. Well, first, let's talk Bucky Irving.
I was going to mention him.
We're both somewhat considerably lower than him on consensus. You're even lower than me. So why don't you talk about that? And then we can get into Olave as well. And we'll save that other guy for the other stream.
Okay. Sounds great. Yeah, I think next stream we'll get into some of these guys as well. So Bucky Irving, man, we see Liam Cohen leaving town. Liam Cohen was kind of what turned this entire team around. And they've always had the individual skill, we'll say. They've always had, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. They've gotten Kate Otten in there. The running backs have come and gone, but we've seen they've always had like the individual talent. But what really clicked last year was Liam Cohen, the quarterback whisperer, kind of opening up this offense. And now he's no longer in town. What do we expect from this backfield? And Liam Cohen this backfield was Fantasyland's most valuable backfield last season. It's just that it was split 2.5, 3 ways, depending on what week it was. It wasn't until after week 12 where we really saw Bucky Irving kind of assert control of this offense. I think the general consensus around Fantasyland is we just expect Bucky Irving to carry that forward into the new season, not counting the change in scheme, the change in coaching, all these changes that this offense is going to have coming into the new year. So I'm more down on him than you are. But looking at this, I just think there's so much uncertainty associated with this situation where I can't, in good faith, invest a top 5 pick in that profile. Whereas to me, Bucky Irving is kind of the start-ish of the running back dead zone this year. And I just much rather take shots at the upside at wide receiver, at George Kittle, at some of these other guys that carry significant upside at other positions in his range.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on a lot of that stuff. And, a lot of the times I think it's easy to fall in love with some of these guys who, he was a favorite last year. We loved him. He was you get him in the 11th or 12th round, or probably even later, actually around pick 150. So I guess that'd be the 13th round. So even with that hype, and then he hits, right? So then you get that confirmation bias about being right. And so it's a name that you just psychologically you're going to associate positive things with. And again, it's I have him towards the end of the 3rd round. You have him as a 4th rounder. So it's not we think he's going to completely, get dusted or not have a role or anything. It's just a matter of, I think that train's gotten a little off the tracks, in my opinion. Like having him at that 2-3 turn, with, I think his ADP is like around 21, 22 on all the sites. So that's just a little rich for me in terms of, I think Rachaad White still is going to have a role. I think Sean Tucker is like a very capable backup, and kind of everything broke right for Bucky Irving last year. So, it's not that I hate him by any means, but it's just, I think that sometimes things kind of regress a little bit, and now we're paying top dollar for him, and I'm kind of out at that price.
Do you expect Rachaad White to kind of maintain that like change of pace, pass catching role?
I think he's, I guess my worry a little bit would be with Irving. Can he handle that whole workload from the start of the season? And does that lead to injuries or because he has such a physical running style? So that's part of the thing, is like he finished the season so strong, but early in the season, he had fresh legs by the time they got out of their week 11 bye. So I think that if he does have that full workload, I would worry about efficiency dips as the season progresses, or just a greater risk of injury. Just frankly, the more you touch the ball, the more likely you are to get injured, especially when you play as such a physical style like him. So I think White could still be involved. I also think Sean Tucker is a lot better than people realize. He's like one of my favorite late in the draft type running backs to target. So I just think there's other talented options there. So automatically projecting a guy for 70-80% of the workload, like you kind of need for him to pay off that late second round draft capital. I feel like that's a bigger leap of faith than I'm willing to take.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The last guy we'll talk about on this session, we'll save some of these guys to talk about on the next one because, I'll just give you a little sneak peek. We'll talk about some of the rest of these guys on the next podcast, as well as some of the format differences and how we have these guys adjusted for the format we're playing next time. So before we do that, let's talk about Chris Olave. I have him ranked well above consensus. You have him right around consensus, about a half a round above consensus now because he's fallen a little bit. I have him about 2 rounds above consensus. I'll take the lead on this since I have such a deviation.
Yeah, anything I'm gonna say, you're gonna go above and beyond. So let's hear it.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is I'm not as worried about, or I at least want to leave myself open to the fact that the uncertainty with this New Orleans Saints offense does not always have to be negative. It's not all negative coming into the season. So we have uncertainty at quarterback. Derek Carr retires. Is Tyler Show going to be given the keys to the offense from the get-go? I think so. I think they're going to throw him to the Wolves. I think he's going to have to come in and be the starter for this team. They're extremely, they have some expiring contracts. They have some aging veterans, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill. They have a lot of guys that are probably on the outs in the next couple of seasons. I think they're going to see what they have, particularly because they have a change in head coach. So Kellen Moore comes into town. And what is so interesting to me about Kellen Moore, and we can save the discussion on his actual offensive scheme. I don't think his scheme is great. Like it's not I think it falls below where the industry tends to talk about him. But one thing we should expect is a massive increase to play volume in New Orleans. We see Kellen Moore, the last 5 seasons that he has been an offensive coordinator in the NFL, his offenses have ranked top 5 in situational neutral pace of play. So there is going to be plays. They've also ranked top 5 in total play volume, so plays per game. So there are going to be a boost to offensive plays. When we look at this offense last year, they were average to below average in total play volume, running around 60, 61 plays per game. We see that spike up to 64, 65 plays per game. There is room for upside for all of these guys. So I'm well above consensus on Chris Olave. We look at Chris Olave, like what has he done? 1,000 yards every professional season. He's still cranking out. He just has not, I think the industry, we keep hyping him, and he keeps kind of not living up to that hype. And I think if he's going to do it, this is actually his best shot to do so, instead of this offense that is kind of so overly gadgety that they're not doing things to highlight their top playmaker. So with Chris Olave, the increase in play volume, yes, there's a rookie quarterback, or potentially. Yes, there's all this uncertainty. Yes, a new coaching staff. All this stuff is coming around. But it's like, what did they do to address their skill position group this offseason? They did nothing. Like, they drafted Devin Neal. That was it. They have Rashid Shaheed, former 6th rounder. Let us remind everybody. Who else is going to be catching passes? We don't know. Taysom Hill's coming off a gruesome injury. He's 30. Is he 33, 34 entering the season? How old is Taysom? You're muted.
35. He's actually
35. Okay, yeah. The old man Taysom, man. New change in coaching. Probably not going to see a lot of Taysom Hill used in the same way. That opens up red zone opportunities. So I'm actually above consensus on Alvin Kamara. I'm above consensus on Chris Olave as the primary pieces of this offense. And it all comes down to me, like, boost in play volume, boost in offensive expected production. And really, they didn't do anything to increase like Chris Olave's increase like the target competition for Chris Olave. So I like him a lot. I think that we are overly concerned with all the uncertainty in New Orleans. And with uncertainty, like, it just means a wide range of outcomes. Like, who's to say they don't return to like popping off like they did at the beginning of last year and in 2023? I don't know. It's within the range of outcomes. I want to be overweight Chris Olave as the primary piece with all those things in mind. What say you, dude?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of good there. And I think similar to what I talked about with Bucky Irving, I think sometimes we have to approach these things from like a macro standpoint and look at things from like we get caught up in how things turned out, how they played out. So like Olave just, he's disappointed relative to expectation. Those expectations for the situations he was in probably weren't great. But when you look at, like, he's a highly talented receiver. I believe he was like the 12th pick in the draft. He has the skill set. He's a good route runner. He has great hands, contested catches. He has speed. He can make big plays. But you look at and now we're getting him at the cheapest that he's ever been.
Yeah.
By like 3 or 4 rounds. And he probably has the best play caller he's ever had. Also Tyler Shuck, like, people aren't super excited about him. He's old for a prospect, whatever everyone wants to say, but like, there's also a chance like he is the best quarterback Olave's played with, from a fantasy perspective, at least. I guess, well, probably not better than Jameis, our boy Jameis was.
Yeah.
But, just you look at the overall standpoint, like, it's kind of the opposite of what we talked about just a minute ago with Bucky. It's this is by far the cheapest he's ever been, and it could be the best upside situation he's had. So, yeah, definitely a guy, like you said, I'm above ADP on. I target him pretty consistently at that 5-6 turn. And yeah, things definitely could break for him the right way, with all those things you talked about in terms of pace and play volume.
Yeah, and I think the biggest knock on Tyler Show is like he kind of crumbles a little bit under pressure. So that will be the thing that I'm looking as far as like targeting Chris Olave and some of these playmakers in DFS is like looking at how he's processing pressure, diagnosing pressure coming into the season. But I mean, yeah, he spent 7 years in college. 3 of those years were just erased by injury. So it is what it is. He's was in the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence. He backed up Justin Herbert over at Oregon. So he's kind of run the gamut. But that kind of gives him plus processing. He is better at, when not in the face of pressure, he is better at kind of reading, diagnosing, getting through his progressions, processing. So the age doesn't necessarily have to all be bad. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be hyping Tyler Show at any point, but that's just the other side of the range of outcomes. I think here. With that, dude, I think we're going to end it there. We went 50 minutes, and we're going to jump off here. We're going to record the next one. But any parting shots about the first kind of 5-6 rounds here that we talked about?
No, I think, and I think that especially at this time, a lot of the things that when we're drafting, we're still in July. It's embracing uncertainty. It's we didn't get to as many of the later round picks, but there's a lot of assumptions that are being made in terms of who's good, who's bad, what this guy's role will be, where he's at in his career arc. That we don't really know. So, and I think that recognizing some of the psychology things and then recognizing kind of where things could go. Like, what is Tyreek Hill was one of your main guys. Like, Tua hits him for a 70-yarder on the first preseason game. Where does his ADP go?
Yeah.
Like, he's immediately like a mid. Like, then all of a sudden now you're just in line with consensus. I think just kind of being aware of the draft cycle, and that's the type of stuff that we talk more in depth with all our Plus subscribers. So come check us out, and hopefully everybody enjoyed this, and we'll be right back with you.
Yeah. And again, bottom of the screen, price drop today. By the time you're watching this, Best Ball Basics at $29, Best Ball Plus at $79. And again, you get all the behind the scenes and all the advanced kind of best ball thought and theory stuff with that Best Ball Plus product. So check us out over at oneweekseason.com. Get signed up. Let us know what you think. Until next time, y'all, we'll see you in those draft lobbies. Cannot wait to see you at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.
1 week season.